All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Wareham School Committee meeting for May 16th, 2024. This meeting is being broadcast live by WCTV and recorded by WCTV and Jamie Wixton. I ask everyone to please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our first agenda item is reorganization of the committee, and we will start with the chair. Are there any nominations for chair of the school committee?
I'd like to nominate Kevin Brajali.
I second.
Any discussion?
Yes. I just want to say that I wholeheartedly support that. But I also want to say that it hasn't always been the practice of the school committee to have a chair more than 1 year. Jeff, I'm sure you would agree with me, right, in the past.
Yeah.
It's been, it was 1 year and then it turned over. But like we said last year, there's definitely value in continuity. As a chair, I know you just get where you want to be, and then it's the end of the year, and then, we switch chairs. So I definitely I appreciate the job that you've done, Kevin. You do a great job as chair. So we look forward to having you as chair again.
And I also feel that you've been my nomination is because you've been a very measured and moderate chair. You've been very considerate with all of our input and all of our information and trying to keep us on task with our agendas as much as humanly possible. And now that you're real retired, we can really use the extra time to keep you out of trouble.
Yes, sir.
Can we say that the support is contingent upon the amount of length of time of the meetings in the future? We could do this sort of like the House of Representatives, okay? If you ever go up past 9 o'clock, then there will be a motion to vacate the
Reorganize.
chair.
To revolt.
Is the pot calling the kettle black?
I second that.
Okay, any more discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Done deal.
Can't
Mr.
oppose it.
Chairman.
Thank you, everybody. And I will take this contingent upon this being the last consecutive year that I would be chair. I do think it's important to rotate, so after this year, I'll be nominating somebody else. But thank you. So I guess the first order of business is to nominate a vice chair and secretary. We'll do these one at a time. Do I have a nomination for vice chair of the committee?
I nominate Joyce Bakayaki.
Do we have a second? Would we like to have any discussion? I look to you, Joyce.
Joyce had been chair previously, and she's always gone above and beyond to give her time to the committee, and I think that in your absence, she would make an excellent vice chair.
Other discussion? I do not disagree. I think we have multiple choices for a great vice chair. Any other discussion? Seeing none, do all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 500.
Technically, we didn't do that for chair.
What?
What's that?
We didn't all say aye,
Yeah,
did we?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm not caffeinated enough for this, I think, today.
You better be careful, you're going to lose your role as parliamentarian.
Oh, my goodness.
Next, we need to nominate for secretary for the reorganization.
So I'd like to nominate Jeff Sweat.
Second.
Any discussion?
Good job, Jeff.
Not saying anything, you mean?
No, I think, I unfortunately, to have the type of job where I'm not able to be at a computer or type things up as diligently as I would like to be able to assist in any of these positions, and I think that Jeff's attention to detail would make him an excellent secretary, and his grammatical prowess.
But are there any numbers involved in the secretary position?
It might be. You can number items.
Okay.
So I would just say also, as secretary, you're called upon to sign warrants, and that, I mean, Jeff, there was a 911 call last week, and Jeff was able to get himself to the office within minutes to sign, and that's really important to be able to do during the day.
I did read that email 4 hours later.
Yeah,
I live close by, it helps.
yes, so,
And
thank you.
besides, Jamie would have whipped me if I hadn't shown up.
So all in favor of Jeff serving as secretary?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500. Thank you. All right, we are duly reorganized. I do want to, well, we'll do public participation first. Is anyone from the public like to address the committee tonight? Seeing none, I am going to move an agenda item from number 10 up right now, and that is the 2025, class of 2025 prom committee suggestion. So if you guys would like to come to the podium.
So I'd like to introduce to my right Charlotte Roy, Emma McWilliams, and Ms. Rakoski from the high school. And I'm really appreciative of their efforts to secure a prom location and date. As you may know, there are a lot of requirements for me to be here today to approve the prom and get to the school committee meeting. We have a couple of requirements, and one is it has to be on a Saturday. Two is it cannot be over Memorial Day weekend, and 3, it has to be within 45 miles of Wareham High School. So that narrows down the opportunities quite a bit, and as you probably understand, these venues would much rather have a wedding than a prom, so it becomes very difficult to find a great location and one that satisfies those requirements. So I really appreciate the work they did. They spent a lot of time and even asked for a little extra time, which I think was fine. We were actually supposed to be here 2 weeks ago, and they wanted to make sure they made the right decision for their classmates, which was really important to all of us. And I'm really excited about the location they're going to ask for you to approve for our prom. So I'll turn it over to the folks to my right.
Great, thank you. So we are looking to have our prom on Saturday, May 17th, 2025. It will be from 6 to 10 p.m. and it's going to be at the Cape Club, which is in Falmouth. It's roughly a 27-minute drive from the school, so it's not very far. And we're going to have 8 chaperones from the school, and we will also be hiring a police detail for security to ensure everything's safe. And another thing I wanted to add too, the bar at the location is clear and free of alcohol, sorry. And it's just a soda bar, so that will be all set for us. Are there any questions?
What was the other venues you were looking at, and what made you pick this one over them?
So we were looking into a bunch of different venues in the area. I know we looked at Rachel's Lakeside in Dartmouth, but unfortunately their availability for dates didn't work for us with the requirements that we have, having it be a Saturday, not Memorial Day weekend. And I believe there was...
I think you were looking at LeBaron Hills,
Yeah, we were
right?
looking at LeBaron Hills also, and I think there was...
There was an issue with, they had something online about they were doing something with the foreclosure, and there was supposed to be some sort of change of ownership with the location, but there had been no update on the foreclosure, so we didn't feel comfortable committing to something
Yeah,
that
better
we
safe
could have
than
trouble
sorry. You
with
don't
like
want to
that.
find out 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
I hear ya.
I was
April?
gonna say, my son's prom, the class of 23s was there, and they were obsessed with the venue. They thought it was a great spot. It wasn't far for them to drive to. I think under half an hour is perfect for you guys, and I think you guys would really enjoy it. So I think, and I love the fact that you paid attention to something, like how many juniors are paying attention to a building in foreclosure and a change of ownership and taking that into consideration when choosing a venue. So I think that's extremely impressive on your part. So to take that into consideration for your classmates, so that's good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were actually looking at the class of 2023's prom too, because I know there are some people in our grade who actually went to that prom, and we'd seen a lot of things about that, so we knew it was a really nice venue from that, so that's part
Lots
of
of
what helped
lots of selfies on the balcony. There was
Yes,
lots of
yes.
those.
Yes, they were.
Jeff?
So 45 miles, it's very precise, not 50, not 40. How did you come up with 45 miles?
Because I want the kids to be less than an hour away. And I figured between back roads and highways, 45 miles gets us a little bit less than an hour.
So it sounds like you did your research, and like April, I applaud you for doing that. Are you, either one of you involved in DECA?
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna be the president for DECA next year,
And it's,
Congratulations.
and she will also be an officer, so.
and it's no surprise that you did your due diligence, so I congratulate you for that. In talking to, I guess, seniors, or maybe people who have been to other proms, did they tell you anything that, other than the fact that perhaps this was a great location, that would educate you about what makes a really good prom versus a mediocre prom?
I feel like some things that we heard, I know Mr. Palladino mentioned the dance floor being big enough for everyone, but we also heard about like pricing, and I know that, I believe this year's seniors got a sort of like photo thing, a rotating camera, I think I
It's
saw
like
something
a
about.
new school photo booth, if you will. It was amazing. Never
So-
seen anything like it.
I saw something about that and it looked really cool, so I think having maybe additions that kids want, if the budget can fit it, can really kind of add to it, and just being conscious to make sure you can have what you want within your budget.
I know she's modest, but Ms. Rakowski, to my far right, has been a senior class advisor many times and has coordinated many proms, and I know they're in really good hands, so when it comes to what makes a great prom, I know that she will have a ton of advice because she has been a class advisor many times over.
Not only what makes it great, but at the best price possible.
Which is my last question. The tennis team has girls' tennis team has a tradition of showing up just before promenade to take pictures with rackets and in front of nets, et cetera. And naturally, I had to ask them, and I do routinely, about the cost of going to prom. First of all, they thought they should have been boys because they said it was a whole lot less expensive to be a boy than a girl, number one. But is it your feeling that anybody doesn't go to prom because of the cost of going to prom?
I think that it is a possibility, but we do a lot of fundraising. We've done a lot of fundraising since like our 8th grade year even. So we've done a lot of different things over the years people can participate in to try and raise some of that money. So when people participate in fundraisers such as we've done Cupcake Charlie's, when people participate in that, the money that they raise individually goes into an individual account within our class account. So we keep track of how much money that person has raised. So that money will then go towards things like their individual senior dues, it'll go towards their prom ticket. So people are able to raise money specifically for themselves rather than just for the overall class at some of our fundraisers.
I applaud you, but there were 6 incredible dresses that I have pictures of, and I said, so do you think you'll ever wear this dress again? And the answer I got was no. And the cost of those dresses was out of sight. So do we have can you donate your dress?
Yes, we do have it's called the prom closet, and if anybody can't afford a dress, we have a whole bunch of dresses that people have donated, and like this year here, Colonel Stanton was doing that for us, and but we've had kids this year that went to the closet and got dresses, because I agree with you. And I said to them, "You're gonna wear this dress again when?" I said, "Why don't you just go to the closet?"
We're always accepting donations too, so anyone that wants to give back, there is still room in the closet.
Every once in a while, I wear my tuxedo, so I'm sorry.
I'm just putting that out there to the public. They can drop it off at the main office. I had someone come in the other day with 3 dresses. We're always accepting new donations, and we do pay it forward to the students that need it. And we've also, as I'm sure you're aware, had people that are gracious and willing to pay for the tickets to the prom in the past when kids struggle. I have a friend that owns a tuxedo shop. When a kid's struggling, needs a tuxedo, I make a call, he takes care of them. So we have, as long as we know about it, we have a way, where there's a will, there's a way for any kid to attend the prom.
Well, I applaud your efforts, and you have my full support.
Just one more quick question, because my son will be a senior next year. How much are tickets? Do you know yet?
So the tickets,
Ticket prices we don't know exactly how much they're gonna be. We know that it's, I think they said something about around $65 for the meal, and then you have to add in the cost of the venue and all that.
Fundraising efforts.
But like I said earlier, I don't know if you were here, but we're having a big fundraiser on November 19th with the Harlem Wizards.
Okay.
And it's like the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yeah.
And that money that I've heard that they've made, because Carver did it in April, I will make sure that that Margie can go to the prom, and Emma can go to the prom. That, you know, I know a lot of these kids from Wareham, and I know they don't have two nickels to rub together, but I will make sure they're there. I've done that before. I've taken kids to Disney World for a class trip, and I knew a kid couldn't, so I said to the advisor, what do you think if we do this? And that happened. So there's no child left behind.
Excellent. All right.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your due diligence, Ms. Rukowski, very much. And you guys did a great job in your presentation. So do I have a
To approve?
motion to approve? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 500. Thank you, and have a great prom.
So much.
You guys.
Okay, next on the agenda is good news. Would anyone like to share some good news? Oh, thank you very much, my parliamentarian friend. We will go instead to payment procedures. Okay, yeah, sorry about that. We need to decide who is going to sign warrants. In the past, we've done it where it would be the chair, followed by the vice chair and the secretary. Can I?
Make a motion for that.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, 500. Sorry about that. Thank you, April. Let's see,
Does
okay.
that carry over for both the bill warrant and the payroll designee?
Yes, yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Could I just make a note for anyone who's listening and? Make sure you're on mute. Sorry. I just want to make a note that those warrants are shared with the whole committee, not just with the people who are signing them, so everybody knows.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, good news. Joyce,
So I just want to congratulate Jeff and April on their reelection.
Thank you.
here, here.
And I feel like there is so much good news happening all around, and I couldn't possibly include it all, but I did want to point out Matt Stanton and his status as, was it runner-up as student teacher of the year. I saw pictures of a ceremony that looked really, really great. So congratulations to Matt Stanton for that award.
Colonel Stanton routinely gets plaudits from people on the tennis team. I think everybody respects what he contributes to the high school.
Absolutely. So that's why it's even nicer to see him get recognition from others. We know how great he is,
Yes.
but
Right.
no, yeah.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just wanted to point out, Scott and I were able to attend on Tuesday evening, National Honor Society induction ceremony at the high school. I think there were 18 students that were inducted into NHS. It was a very nice ceremony, and it was really nice to recognize those students.
Great. Brennan?
I might get the team wrong, but a former Wareham alumni who I coached in JBA way back when, Aaron Struthers, recently is now playing for, I want to say it's professional basketball in Puerto Rico, or
I think it might be, is it Costa Rica or Puerto
Costa Rica, that might be, I knew I would get it wrong, but, so now I can say I coached a professional basketball player. He was 8 and 3 feet tall, short as kale, and my team grew up to be like 6'6" or something, but.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our student representative report. And I just would like to add that Gisela will be finishing her term with us as the student representative. And Gisela, you've been a great voice. You're very introspective, very thoughtful. And all of us appreciate the insights that you've given us over the course of this year. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So no pressure in giving you a last report here, but the floor is yours.
Thank you. Just for the sake of time, and as we have something very important to talk about later tonight, I will keep this a little bit short. But starting off as usual with our clubs and then to academics, the art show took place this week on May 9th with some amazing pieces of artwork. The musical You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown is opening this Friday, May 17th at 7 p.m. and we'll also have showings at 7 p.m. on Saturday, the 18th, and 2 p.m. on Sunday, the 19th, and is hoping for anyone who can go to attend. The band is also having their concert on Wednesday, May 22nd, and is also hoping for anyone to attend if they can. And it is completely free. Fashion Marketing had an amazing performance last night with some hand-selected pieces of clothing and also handmade pieces of clothing, which was quite a performance to see. Student Council just had their class elections for 8th to 11th graders, which took place this week and last week. And I am also pleased to announce that the new student representative will be Emma McWilliams, who you guys met or saw tonight. And now on a more academic side, as has already been stated, National Honor Society inducted 18 new members this Wednesday. Applications for the Stone Scholarship were due this week to support uprising seniors who are applying to college. The scholarship will fund $40,000 to one student. MCAS testing took place this week and last week, and seniors are gearing up for their last week of school. And lastly, IB and AP testing took place this week, and on the topic of IB, I am incredibly enthusiastic to take part in that conversation later tonight.
Thank you. All right, we have a variety of handbooks to review and approve tonight. We will start with the district handbook.
All right, I guess that's me, right?
I think so.
All right, so you received in your packet a copy of the district handbook and the revisions. Nothing really major. Most of it are dates, the table of contents. We've made the policy revisions that we've made throughout the year in the policy subcommittee. Those have been added and/or revised in the handbook. And of course, we updated the contact list in the back of the document. So generally, it was mostly a lot of housekeeping things or things that have been brought to the committee prior. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions on the district handbook changes?
No, they were pretty standard changes, right?
Motion to
Jeff?
approve? Oh,
Oh,
sorry,
Jeff.
Jeff.
Let's see. Can I assume that the non-discrimination statement on page 1 is right out of the law?
Yes.
Okay. In the spirit of what April described me as, I think there is under crisis response, and I'm trying to find the page.
'43, I think.
43.
Okay, believe it or not, there's a reference, there's the use of the term inshore, and grammatically it needs to be ensure.
Where is that, Jeff?
Page
I'm trying to
43.
find it.
Oh, okay.
This Chromebook doesn't skip down as fast as I would like.
You can type the page number, I believe.
Yeah, but that doesn't bring you to the.
You said 43?
Is the page that is on, the incident response?
Yeah, I'm just,
It says an agency will
Oh,
ensure.
you know what? I think I found it. It is page 43 within the highlighted section. It was
Yeah.
a highlighted section.
it references inshore and it should be ensure.
Got it. I have it.
And I think it's in other handbooks as well as inshore.
Okay.
So I'll stop nitpicking.
Okay.
Updated. We need to update that entire policy because everyone's copying from this.
Fine, okay.
Any other questions, comments,
Motion
suggestions?
to approve with Jeff's edit?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. All right, next up, we have the elementary handbook.
Thank you, school committee. First, I'd like to thank the school council this year of 23, 24. We reviewed this, and they had several suggestions. They're a very active school council. and I appreciate their service. So all of these changes were made due to their review. I'll go through them now. Our first is that we have added a QR code. So now our handbook has gone live, and this QR code just sends a direct link to all of the policies on the Wareham Public School website. Page 10, we made a revision of school attendance. I wanted the families to understand that although appreciated, notes from home or calling a student in sick is not an excused absence. Yes?
So I'm
Yeah.
hearkening back to my days as a child,
Mm-hmm.
and if my mother stuck a thermometer in my mouth just to make sure she wasn't sending me to school with a fever, because I know our nurses send people home with fevers, and it registered 101, she would keep me home.
Right.
She wouldn't even think about calling the doctor because A, was expensive. Even back then, it was relatively expensive. And she would just call in sick for me. And it didn't happen very often, no matter how much I might have faked it. But the bottom line is, that's still considered an unexcused absence, correct?
According to our our district policy, yes.
Maybe even the state policy.
Correct.
But if they went to urgent care and spent a fortune, and they got a note that said, child has a fever, should not be in school, then that would be an excused absence, correct?
According to our district policy, yes.
I find that fundamentally unfair.
I know. It's difficult, right? Because we also say your children have to be 24-hour fever-free, and we send children home. So I understand.
So you're almost saying you don't trust the parents, which is not a good message to be sending home.
Right, and I mean, we don't, excused or unexcused for a day or two is almost irrelevant because it counts against us no matter what, according to the state. The issue I get with unexcused over time, if I have a child that's unexcused for several days, is that now I have a child who's truant or could be missing, and that's where
I just think it's
the
a bit of
pattern
a
is.
conundrum.
Well,
I understand.
Actually, I can speak to that a little bit as a parent of a kid in school. Most pediatricians' office, if you call and explain the situation, they will provide, I think it's no more than 2 a year, but they will provide a note. If you call and say, look, my son's got a fever, I need a note to, just for procedural purposes, they will send one.
So what you're saying is the pediatrician takes the word of the parent, but the school can't.
School can't legally, I don't think that we need to put the school, I understand what you're saying, but we can't put the school in that
Pediatrician
position.
has no evidence to support their decision to provide the note.
No, they don't, but this is much more kind of a procedural thing that we're trying to,
Okay,
So until the policy changes, I just want our families to understand that it would be unexcused. Oftentimes, I do have families that do want a printout of the absentee report for the year. It's very clear. It has an X for excused or unexcused. So
Get it.
we made that change. Page 16, there was some confusing language there, so I removed the last sentence. I didn't quite understand it, so I removed that outdoor play. Page 33, we added crisis response, just as the district did. However, I also added that I wanted families to understand that we do practice each year fire drills, bus evacuation drills, and lockdown drills. We added special education transportation to our handbook, as we thought that many families would like to know about that. And it's important and relevant to our school. Along with bus variances, it's important for our families to understand that pickup and drop-off should be at the same location, and it's one bus per child.
What does one bus per child mean, actually?
One bus per child.
Yeah,
Can't take a different
You can't take 2 different buses a day.
So there's no more
In each-
variance anymore. You can't
Oh,
go
so you
to
can't go one in the morning and one in the
go to
afternoon?
after school.
You can have a variance, but it's the same bus to and from. And that's just for our population and be able to make sure that we are able to we know who's on each bus.
but
Okay.
it it's a problem in the sense that if you want to be picked up at your home,
Right.
dropped off at the Y, for
Right.
example,
Can't.
you can't do it.
So you have to go
Right.
to the Y in the morning, be picked up at the Y, to then be dropped off at the Y after school.
Okay, I just wasn't
I
sure
missed
what
the
that meant.
days
Thank
of a
you.
real variance.
It's, yeah, it can be complicated because then you need 3 or 4 buses for one area location. So anyway, so we put that in there. We added a paragraph of prevention and intervention plan, page 37. We added Title IX. We added to security visitors, the school buildings. This was picked up by the school council and good. I omitted the visitors must provide a Massachusetts state license. We thought that, jeepers, well, we may have parent without a Massachusetts state license. They could be from Vermont or Rhode Island. They can still pick up their child. So we just changed that language. We did add service animals to the policy, as we do have a service animal in the district now, along with physical examination of students, and we just changed the school breakfast and lunch program 50 cents from milk to 65 cents.
Question.
Yes.
So assuming you're choosing to accept the free lunch?
Yes.
Or breakfast,
Right.
is there any milk in that?
There's milk in the free breakfast, there's milk in the free lunch.
Okay, so if someone brings their lunch, they're charged for milk.
Correct.
But if someone accepts the free lunch, they're
Yes.
not charged for milk.
Correct.
I'm struggling with that.
There you go, being logical again.
That
I'm
is.
sorry about my
That'd be a
logic.
question for food services. I just changed it according to it. I know.
Well, then I will ask the superintendent for the logic behind that, and if there isn't any, could you consider this an appeal to be more logical?
So, yes, you can, let me talk to Mike Russo and get the facts on that one.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you.
I
By the way,
add-
I used to have about 4 of those milk cartons every lunch, so I'm very sensitive to the paying for, and I think they were 2 cents back when I went to school, but.
And we added about the district and school family engagement. We find family engagement to be very important, we put that in there. And then the rest, we have another QR code here, as well as a link for additional policies to go to the website, and then just the change in staffing. I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Any other questions?
And also-
Right. Joyce?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say I love the QR code.
That came from school council. Thank you, Ms. Tricker, came
Yeah.
up with that idea.
And, you have links in there too, so, and
Yes.
it's online, so it just makes it so much easier. Yeah.
Thank you. A lot of great feedback. I have one school council parent who thought the readability, we're going to try to change. I said, I don't know if I could. So we're going to work on the readability for next year, too. So a lot of just great ideas. Another one was about the crisis intervention. One of my parents said, let's tell our parents that you do these drills so they know that the children are prepared for fire drills, bus evacuation, lockdown. So again, a lot of great feedback. So I do appreciate their service once again and all the feedback that they provide.
So do I have a motion to accept?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to also, can I just say one more thing? I would
Sure.
also like to say thank you to Ms. LaFrancois. She did a really great job, and she was really, really helpful in making sure that all of these pages align. It can be very, very difficult, right, Ms. Wixton, to the table of contents and all of the work that goes behind it. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. All right, middle school handbook is up next.
Good evening.
Hi.
I'd also like to thank my school council for reviewing the handbook and making some edits. We did some just updating to 2024, staff updates on page 1, school calendar on page 2, page 3, we updated the term schedules, page 11. We changed excessive tardies just a little bit. The assistant principals have been starting with the warning as normal, but we did add in lunch detention. That's the second step. So That was the change there. Page 16, we removed the internet safety. That is now embedded into the empowered digital use. So we took out that policy, and we didn't add the whole empowered digital use because it was a very long policy. Page 16, we added no unitards at all to the dress code. Page 23, we removed under visitor the Raptor system. We do not use that anymore at the middle school. Page 61, we changed the date of the homeschool compact. On page 62, I just updated the letter that we send to families. Questions, concerns?
Joyce?
So a Friday detention, is that after school on Friday?
Yes,
You
till
still do that?
5 o'clock,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Right. And the dress code thing, I'm not even going to ask, I just sometimes shake my head at the,
Google it.
okay.
It's been lovely this year.
All right, I will.
I did this afternoon, actually.
Did you? Yeah. Quite interesting.
Jeff, go ahead.
So does the tardiness, I guess it's punishment, does it work?
Yes, for a lot of students. Most of the times the parents blame themselves, but I don't really care. The student
So-
pays the price.
I'm gonna obviously confess that I didn't look it up. I have no idea what a unitard
Well,
is.
you need to.
You're
I
not gonna tell me.
I have experienced quite a bit.
You have to thank Lululemon for that one.
A unitard is basically like,
It's
a
all
onesie?
body, one body leggings.
yeah.
It's,
What if it's cold and they just want to have it as a first layer and they cover it up?
Then you wouldn't know what's on.
that is not what's coming in.
That's not the reason for the policy.
It's a nylon. That's
Okay,
basic,
all right.
yeah. You just can't make this stuff up.
Okay?
I think your handbook mentioned that teachers would stay after on Tuesday afternoons, is that right? Or am I
My
mixing it?
teachers stay every day after
Every day?
school,
Okay, I was
Monday
just
through
wondering.
Thursday. On Friday, they can leave after
So
buses.
contractually, then, the expectation is what right now for teachers staying after school?
So on Mondays, we have meetings, and Wednesday, we have meetings. On Tuesday, it's after-school clubs, extra help. On
Okay.
Thursday, it's typically parent conferences, and also teachers have been doing extra help. So if they don't have a conference, they have extra help.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the middle school handbook changes?
Motion to approve?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Awesome, thank you.
500. Thank you. Mr. Palladino,
happens
try to
when
beat that
Kevin's
time.
the
There's no chance.
All right, well, thank you for allowing us to present today. I want to thank the students and staff that responded to the various surveys we had on handbooks. I want to thank the Site-Based Management Committee on the handbook review that met every month to review the handbook and suggest changes. I want to, thank, we'll see how this goes, the Approaches to Cell Phone Committee. They were a great committee. They met for over 25 hours to do a lot of research and site visits, and we'll get into that cell phone. I want to thank our student advisory reps. Gisela is one of them that's here today. I want to thank our school council and our student advisory reps as well. So our school council, I'm blessed to have Rebecca Roy here as one of our school council members. I appreciate her sticking around. They're very involved in this and very involved in our meetings. We had a lot of meetings this year with the IB committee as well. So appreciate all those folks that were a big part of our recommendations. And there's a lot of dates at the beginning, as you can see, that just need to be changed. Every year we go through that. So that's kind of the first page. A few years back with the pandemic, we got rid of the mid-year review, the mid-year exams. So on page 8, we just wanted to have that reflected appropriately and got rid of the term mid-year, and it just says final exam dates. You ask what days staff are available at the high school. Every Tuesday, teachers are available for extra help. And designated Thursdays, they're also available. And we have meetings on Mondays as well. We have an enrichment period that meets on Wednesdays and Thursdays during the school day. So that's why it's designated Tuesdays. Effective in the 2020-21 school year, and beginning with the class of 2024, we changed some class ranks. So we figured that since the class of 2024 will be graduating, we can remove that. Couple changes to the dress code. We're seeing Snuggies being worn as jackets, so we got rid of those. It hasn't been an issue yet, but I'm hearing from colleagues that sunglasses during the day are making a comeback, so we wanted to get in front of that and get sunglasses on the dress code. And this is something we're starting to see: slippers worn as shoes or slipper socks. And going up and down stairs, obviously there's a liability there, so we wanted to get rid of that. Work permits, we moved to the principal's office. You may remember they were originally at central office. We tried to do it down in guidance. It just got too hectic down there, so we extracted it from guidance and we're moving it to the principal's office. And then on page 34, we're going to adjust the electronic media communication, AKA cell phone. And we had a committee, like I mentioned, that did a real thorough job. 6 teachers. They researched online for hours of various procedures and policies that are working. They reached out to over a dozen schools to try and get into the schools to see what they're doing, specifically with schools that were promoting success with cell phones not being used in the classroom. To no one's surprise, they did not get a lot of return emails and phone calls because it seems like a lot of comprehensive high schools are struggling with the same issue. But we did have a chance to get into a couple of schools and see some procedures and some devices that are being used, and I'm really happy to report back that I think we have a good solution for our school 24-25 school year in regards to how we would use cell phones or not use them in classrooms. So I certainly don't want to read to you. You've had a chance to read through this. I'll give you the short version. So basically, our procedure right now is that students are allowed to use a cell phone before school, after school, during passing, and in lunches. That will still remain in effect. The only difference will be, instead of students being allowed to secure their cell phone in a bag or in their pocket, we will have a device that's like a little locker that every student will put their phone in upon entering the classroom. The teacher will close that at the end of, when the bell rings, the start of the class, end of passing, and the cell phones will remain in there until the end of the class. At the end of the period, the teacher will unlock it, students will grab their cell phone. This will also give the teachers an opportunity to use that as a way of taking attendance. And we really look forward to having that consistent procedure to account for cell phones and make sure that they're not a distraction to the learning that's going on. Certainly, this will be our first year. There will be a learning curve. We will, as soon as, if approved tonight, we will start getting this out to students, making sure parents understand the expectations, and making sure we educate the staff. The staff is aware that this is the proposal, but we certainly want to solidify that after tonight's meeting. So we're very excited about the procedure. We have found a device we're very happy with. And what I like about this is, if there's ever a situation like they had in North Andover today when they had a gas leak and all the students had their cell phones locked in the lockers and the parents were going nuts, our teachers can take that, and it's basically a briefcase, off the wall, it has a handle, and carry it with them to wherever you may be relocated to. So I'm excited about it. I don't think, we will just ride this. I think we will be reflective of this. We will evaluate it. I'm sure we will make some changes a year from now. But I think we have a great foundation for a great start with the alternatives to cell phone moving forward into the 24-25 school year. So I'm sure there'll be questions on that, but I'll just get through the changes,
Okay.
and I'm sure we can circle back on that. We also have kind of the consequences if students aren't following through. We did add on page 36 scooters. I'm sure you've seen them throughout town. Scooters are making a comeback. So we just wanted to add that to reflect what's being locked up in the bike rack. Our school nurse is excited about the hall pass system that we've had in place for a couple years, and she wants to use that as a means of communication for students or teachers that need to send a student to the nurse. One thing we're hearing about from some colleagues is that students are using water bottles in the bathroom to vape into. We have not seen that yet, but we certainly wanted to highlight, just like we don't allow backpacks in the bathroom, we're not going to allow students to bring water bottles in, just to be proactive. I wanted to clean up a little bit on the athletic eligibility, just making sure people understand. Sometimes I get a call, I'd like to apply for a waiver for the fall season, and the reality is those students have summer school to use to get themselves eligible if they're close. So I just wanted to highlight we've never been able to give waivers because students have that opportunity for summer school. We've got some descriptions of clubs that have kind of changed, and they wanted to be that to be reflected in the handbook of kind of description of the clubs. And as you remember, just a few months ago, we received approval from the school committee for the film club, so we certainly wanted to have that reflected in the handbook. And the last change, besides the district discrimination harassment Title IX, was just adding that 504s are going to be released if students transfer or withdraw, et cetera, that would be part of the packet. So I know there's probably a lot of questions on cell phones, so those are the changes being proposed for next year. Certainly entertain any questions you may have, even if it's not cell phones.
April?
So with the students putting their devices in this lockbox with the ability, at the end of the class, that means that learning time is going to be cut short for the
No.
kids to get their devices in time to get to their next class, or it goes right to the end, they then have to mill around this box, get all of their devices, and then attempt to not be late to their next class? Are you adding extra time to passing?
No, bell to bell,
And how much is time between each bell?
3 minutes. I can crawl from one end of the school to the other in 3 minutes. They have plenty of time. We
Okay.
teach bell to bell.
It might take them
Brennan?
a little while to figure it out, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like, I think, the teachers will figure out the process. The containers fit 36 phones. We'll never need 36. I'll knock on wood as I say that. But yeah, there's going to be, a learning process to this. And I'm just excited that we have a device that we can be very consistent with and hold that expectation.
Is it like a key lock, or is it like a pen code lock?
It's a key lock. And it just slides onto the wall and slides off the wall if needed to be. Obviously, it's not going to be taken off the wall very often. And it has a clear front. I would have brought it with you, but I had another meeting at the middle school before this, but maybe some show and tell. But it's basically, it looks like a briefcase that goes on the wall, and it has a clear front and a door that swings open with a lock. And there's slots for, I guess it's 6 phones across, 5 down.
So each
Oh,
student.
six down, 6 across.
Each students would be with their name, and then they'd put their phone and like earbuds?
Right.
What about like watches, if they have like an Apple
Yeah,
Watch? or
you know,
any-
school
or-
council,
We talked about
the
that.
school council brought that up. Again, it's the first year doing this, I think we'll have to, we anticipate we may see some more watches in school, more than we usually do. It hasn't been a huge issue with the watches, but we were talking to school council that we're gonna have a lot of kids that need their phone for medical reasons, and, blood sugar readers, and we're gonna have a lot of kids that want the watches now for their birthday or the holidays. So we'll have to, the expectation is all electronics are in there, but we'll certainly have to, keep an eye on that. And it's really the cell phones that have been the distractor, obviously, to this point.
Brennan?
Actually, that was part of my question, was I just wanted to know if there were individual pockets, or, are kids just going to be diving in for their phone kind of thing?
Right, so I should have answered the rest of April's question. Thank you for reminding me. So every kid will have a number. So Joyce will be 1, April 2, Kevin 3, et cetera. And that's how you'll be assigned. So you'll know your number in each class. It won't have names for 2 reasons. One, it's a very small space for the
Oh,
numbers.
in every class, it's
And
gonna be
this,
different.
in that classroom, on any given day, we could have 5 different classes, and then you could have multiple different teachers. So, but every classroom will have one of these devices in the classroom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I'm just, and again, I think this is probably, the best, and there's going to be a learning curve. I'm just concerned about the school's liability. What if someone takes someone else's phone and, things of that nature? That's really my biggest concern, is how liable is the school if some of these devices, which can be really expensive, especially earbuds, if they're either damaged, the teacher closes the thing and it breaks a phone, cracks the screen. What is our liability for any
Sure.
of this?
So, for the last, I'd say 10 years, it's been very rare that we've had an issue with the larceny of a cell phone. Now, 5 or 6 years prior to that, 15, 16, 17 years ago, it was an issue. I think what's happened is that the kids have like GPS on everything. As a matter of fact, we had a kid lose the earbuds, and they were able to tell us what room it was in the school. It ended up being stuck behind the bleachers in the gym, but they were able to say, it's at 7 Viking Drive and it's in the gymnasium. I was like, are you kidding me? And they're like, yeah, it's somewhere in the gym. And I was like, well, let's keep looking.
Good to know.
And we found them. Like 20 minutes later, we were able to find them. And I'm not saying everyone has that, but it's really, we don't spend a lot of time on larceny issues with really anything, let alone cell phones or earbuds. That's not to say, again, you know, we'll
see what happens.
We're gonna learn. They've spent a lot of time speaking to a lot of schools and visiting the few that would let them in. And, you know, they've gotten a lot of great feedback, and they're very confident as a committee that this is gonna work. But again, you know, let us get a year under our belt and report back to you on how it's going. I can guarantee you what's written there will be some tweaks to that as we learn. But we try to learn from others' experiences, from their, you know, their pitfalls and their successes. And we're trying to replicate what we can do there to, you know, to try and maximize the opportunity.
And we won't know it's a problem until we know it's a problem. I understand that as well.
Right.
My other question was, it said that they can use their phones during lunchtime. One of my concerns is, especially you have it in here, using the camera video functions, you know, recording the lunchroom. I might be dating myself with, I remember whenever there was a problem, it was usually in the lunchroom. And, you know, we've all seen the videos online of the big fights happening and everyone recording it. Are they allowed to record
No,
during lunch?
that's in the code of conduct. They're not allowed to record anyone that unknowingly or any physical altercation or verbal. That's been in place for a long time. Honestly, that's not really a huge issue. I mean, it might happen once or twice a year. It's not a big issue. And to be honest with you, lunch duty might be the best duty going. The kids are all on their phones. It's quiet. It's not like it used to be, Coach, when we'd have earplugs in because it was so loud. It's not bad.
We used to have Coach.
You can put your earpods in.
AirPods now, yeah.
I was gonna say, I
Jeff and
remember
then
Mr.
April.
Aldridge, you
Jeff
stood
and
up
then
yelled
April.
in the bullhorn.
Is it fair to say that the vast majority of cell phones are password protected?
Yes, definitely.
So taking someone else's password has limited value unless you're literally just being malicious.
Right.
Is it also fair to say that the Chromebooks have all the capacity necessary so that the number of times a cell phone wouldn't be needed for academic research or whatever is negligible?
It's minimal, maybe some apps, maybe that you don't have in the Chromebook, but it's minimal. There's not a lot of academic reasons that a student would be on their phone.
So is it also fair to say that teachers, individual teachers, will not have the ability to say, in my classroom, don't worry about your cell phones, I trust you? That's not going to be allowed, correct?
That's not going to be allowed, and that will be something, again, we didn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. If approved tonight, that will be a point of emphasis on our observations next year under Standard 4.
Because that would be a disaster.
You're only as strong as your weakest link, and we need everyone to be on the same page. And that's been our issue, frankly, with the cell phone procedure up to this point. And we feel that now, by having a device in the classroom, if you will, it will allow for adherence to the policy and consistency from one room to the next.
I can tell you from listening to the people on the tennis team, this is much more acceptable to them than the rumors are flying about what it's going to be. I mean, the rumors were, you lose it when you walk into school and you get it back at the end of school.
Right. No, I think this is a happy median. We have people, you know, there are a lot of things, as you know, that go on in a high school student's life, and there has to be some communication throughout the day. It's a necessary evil. You know, practice is being canceled. Yesterday, who knew that the tennis match was going to be canceled? And then you walk outside at 3 o'clock and it's raining. You know, the parents thought that there was going to be a tennis match, and being able to have those communications and figure out, you know, logistics as far as transportation, and a lot of our kids have jobs and family responsibilities at home. So it's I think it's a really excellent compromise for all, and I'm really looking forward to it, frankly.
I applaud all the hard work that you and the school council and everybody else went into finding something that, as you say, it's undoubtedly, to some extent, a work in progress, but it's a great start.
I agree, and like I said, the committee spent, you know, a lot of hours, times 6 teachers, just researching this and vetting it and creating the procedure.
Thank you.
I just want to know Gisella's.
I was about to say the same thing.
Of it, yeah, because as a student.
Doesn't apply to her. She's
I know,
graduated.
she's an outgoing senior.
Totally objective.
So
She's been involved, though, trust me.
She's always been very insightful over everything and super involved in policy and with the handbook and stuff, so I'm definitely interested in your perspective of the changes.
Personally, I understand completely why the policy is going to be taken into effect. looking at it from like a teacher's point of view, and I've heard from teachers themselves saying how it's hard trying to like wrangle certain students to like stay on task, and like how not much learning can be done when phones are, can be a distraction. But at the same time, we've had this conversation a little bit ago, but I think phones, they're not going anywhere, and I personally feel that at least for the upperclassmen, I feel like it's important to start teaching how to personally determine when to use a phone or not, and those skills I don't feel like are necessarily going to be taught in the same way if that decision is taken completely out of students' hands. And I also feel like phones do have an educational value, and I feel like multiple classes, they do have an importance. In art classes, you use your phone for reference photos or from like real life, which you can't do on a Chromebook necessarily. There's certain websites like Pinterest that lots of art students use. In global politics, we talk about current events, and Colonel Stanton encourages us to look in our everyday life at things that, like such as TikTok, where we see point of views that we don't always get to see from major news sources. So I feel like phones do have a strong educational value, but I also understand the difficulty of trying to put a policy in place specifically for underclassmen and not for upperclassmen, and how that can be a struggle. So I understand why the policy is taking place, but in my perfect world, which is from my point of view and not necessarily an objective one, I'm not the most in favor of it. And also, again, I do, just from my experience, not just being in Wareham High School, but in schools across the country, I understand the importance of having a phone for safety, whether it's school safety or something going on in your own personal family life. So I understand having a phone in your person at all time. But I understand why the policy is taking place.
You seem to be arguing for adding it to senior privileges.
Not necessarily solely seniors, but yeah.
That sounds like a senior priv if I've ever heard one, Jeff.
I did have a question about advisory. So right now, how is advisory used at the high school?
Sure. So advisory, on Monday and Tuesday, we have a curriculum that the students follow. We also use that time to have meetings. Most recently, as Gisela pointed out, there were elections. I believe that was that Tuesday? Tuesday. So what we try to do, like, one of my pet peeves was always, there'd be an assembly in the middle of my class, and I'd be like, okay, now, I lost that time, never getting it back. So we try to use the advisory on Monday and Tuesday for any type of meetings that need to take place. Wednesday and Thursday, we use it for enrichment period. We've talked about a number of times, our students have a tough time staying after school. So we use the enrichment period, the enrichment app. The students can sign up for any teacher they want for extra help. Obviously, we cap it so that there's some value to it. And then the teacher accepts them and they go into the classroom. So it's a lot of student choice there. And they base it, where they might need help. I'm sure Giselle has used it a little bit, probably not as much as most students do, but, if you have to make up a quiz because you're absent, things like that. And then on Friday, we have a student-run TV show that's put together by the AV Club, and we present that during that time. So there's a lot that goes on. For those of us that have been around for a while, it kind of took the place of homeroom.
Right. So my only concern was that I think I read that advisory was optional based on the teacher if you could use your phone.
Yeah.
I don't want to send a message to the students that advisory is really not that important and you can use your phone there.
Right.
And then does that then open it up to individual teachers in creating a crack in the solidarity?
Right. No, it's a
so
good point.
I want you to maybe look at that down the road.
Definitely we can. It's, sometimes in advisory, there may be a little bit of downtime. So I think that's why the committee felt like that could be, like if it's appropriate, they might have a minute or two to check their messages.
Okay. Jeff?
I was remiss. There are a tremendous number of 7th graders who have phones. What is the policy for 7th graders? Or in the middle school in general? Sorry for not asking earlier.
They're not allowed.
That was easy.
They can have them on them, but any policy is good unless, as much as you enforce it, right? So it's enforced. They don't.
So you don't see them out too much in the middle school?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
And they have a consequence when they are.
Thank you.
So you say they have, because I did look that up in the middle school handbook. before tonight, and I thought it said that they have to keep them in their locker. Is that, as long as you don't see them, is that, okay?
As long as we don't see them.
Yeah.
They don't have them out at any time.
So when they come to the high school, they're still going to have more freedom at the high
Exactly.
school than they had at the middle school.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which is appropriate.
Yeah,
I didn't want it to be the reverse.
right.
Any other questions about the policy or any of the changes in the handbook?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And good luck.
Thanks.
All right, the handbooks are all voted on. Next up is the high school IB evaluation report. Says possible vote. I don't anticipate holding a vote on this, but let's see where the report goes.
So before I read the statement, I just want to thank the school council. We added, I believe, 3 extra meetings for the school council to have an opportunity to read the report, meet as a council, and also we brought in some IB teachers to hear from them about everything from the rollout to the procedures that are in place, to their experiences, to their thoughts on where we should move with the IB. I thought it was a great process. We had open meetings, obviously. People were able to come in, and we actually had one of the meetings, a reporter from WCTV was there. So she was doing a report on school councils. It wasn't on IB. And I think we had a great process, and I really appreciate all of their time dissecting everything from IB. And at the end, we were charged with coming back with a recommendation from the school council to present to you folks and ultimately to the superintendent in regards to where we go from here. And so we met most recently, as you probably know, on Tuesday morning, and the recommendation from the school council is to dissolve the IB program at the end of the 24-25 school year. This will ensure the completion of the diploma program and the completion of 2-year courses for the current Wareham High School juniors. We will not offer 2-year courses next year, and IB courses will not be offered in the 25-26 school year. Obviously, we will have to spend a lot of time on the schedule that's been created in regards to staff assignments, students' requests over the next few weeks, as this will impact the scheduling that has already been created for next school year. So there's a lot, we're talking hundreds of hours to get this in alignment, and it's really tough timing, but this is the vote of the school council, so I'm here to report that to you.
April?
I just have to say, I'm disappointed. I think that of all the students that I've spoken to that have, since we've had IB, I feel like any of the students that have not even necessarily done the IB diploma program, as I know that there's only really been a handful of them because of availability and
Sure.
scheduling and things like that. But I feel that those students have indicated to me that they felt more prepared for their critical thinking in college classes and the way that their education would progress because of those IB classes. It's just a shame that so much work was put in to give us something and for us to put so much behind to set us apart as a school and as a district, because as I said, when I go to the MASC conferences, there are so few schools that do have an IB program, and I think it's been hugely beneficial that we've had the option of IB as well as AP and dual enrollment, and I hope that at least the structure of that type of learning will continue, where it will be not as rigid. I feel like having the kids be able to kind of guide themselves and be more student-driven has been hugely beneficial for the success of our students in the last few years that have had access to IB. So I'm really disappointed, and I just don't agree with dissolving the IB program. I think it's still too soon.
I agree with you. I'm just reporting what the school council voted on. I didn't say I agreed with this. I'm just the reporter representing the school council.
I appreciate that, and I'm just
I agree with you. We
My
had,
opinion be known, so.
we had a homecoming, we had 11 students, and they all 7 of them referenced IB as a class that they took that helped them in their freshman year of college the most.
Any other comments? Jeff?
First, I need to understand, because I respect the role of the school council, and I wasn't at the meeting, I want to understand why. It's one thing to vote to do something, there's another thing to understand the rationale behind it.
Sure.
Is it academic? Is it economic? Is it, what is the rationale?
So, again, I'm going to kind of give you a general synopsis. I don't want to speak for any one member of the council, but I think there were a few things that, obviously, we're in a tough fiscal crisis, and they're looking at it. Are we a school that's big enough to have 3 great programs for our students that want to challenge themselves academically? We have a strong AP program, we always have. We have the dual enrollment program that has really taken off much faster than we thought, although we're hearing that it may cost the students more money, so I think those kids it's going to come back down to reality when they have to pay between 2 and 3 times more per class next year. That's what we're hearing. It's not official yet, but that's what we're hearing. So
2 and 3 times
2 to 3 times more per class than what they've been paying for the last 10 years. We're still working on that. That's going to be a detriment to some kids taking that. But again, it was, do we have a large enough pool to run these classes? And then, when you're trying to run the 3, there are some tough decisions that have to be made. So sometimes there are students that are forced to take an IB that really didn't want to. They were hoping for an AP course, but that was the only class that was offered. So it does minimize some options in scheduling. So kids may be in classes they may not be as excited to take. So that was certainly a concern. We rolled this out on a shoestring budget, and I think sometimes when you're trying to do that, that extends yourself as a school and as a group. And, I think we could have done things a little bit differently, but at that point, we were just happy to get it going, and we were kind of building it as it was evolving in front of us. We had, I think, the director did an amazing job under the circumstances. There was always things occurring, and we didn't have the money to train this person, and somehow we got it rolled out. But in hindsight, it would have been nice to have the appropriate amount of money to really do it well.
So help me understand the economics, because apparently the school council felt that it was costing money we couldn't afford to do this. So what were they told about how much it was costing?
Sure. So it's in the report. There's a fee, I believe it's approximately $10,000 to be a member of IB, and then there was a coordinator, and I don't want to misspeak on the salary, but I believe it was like maybe $30,000 to $40,000.
It was a part-time position.
Right. So those were the costs. And cost wasn't the only, I think, and again, I don't want to speak for everyone on the committee, but there were many different reasons for that. And Joyce, you're a member of the council, so please, anything that I've forgotten, there's been a lot going on since then. Certainly, you were there, and I respect, your opinion on that.
And I'd like to understand procedurally from the superintendent. This is a recommendation from the school council. It's by its very nature, it's advisory. Correct? Our chair has indicated that a vote is not necessary tonight. Is that your opinion as well?
That's my understanding. It's not, it's a gray area, but there was no vote to bring the program in by the school committee. So at this point, I would say there's no requirement for a vote.
So are you suggesting that you could simply eliminate it on your own authority and we'd have no role?
Am I suggesting that? I'm not suggesting that,
Okay.
no. However you guys want to proceed is how you want to proceed. But I certainly have a plan for, if you don't vote, how I'm going to go forward.
So you are looking for a vote tonight?
However you guys want to proceed, I will honor.
Okay. Now, and I'd love to hear from Joyce on this too, but the school council consists of, and Giselle, by the way, consists of
She's a student advisory council. This is school council.
true, but I thought you implied that you had an opinion on this, and I would like to hear from you.
Sure.
But do you sense from faculty that there is agreement with the school council on this?
I think it's mixed. We heard from one teacher that was pro-IB and one teacher that was anti-IB, and I think if we continued to bring those people in, it would be a 50-50 split on that front. It's definitely not unanimous one way or another. I mean, it might be 45-55, but it's pretty close to even.
Can I
Sure,
add
Joyce.
something there? So Scott just said that there was, certainly, there were two teachers and they were on
Opposite ends.
opposite sides.
Fair.
But I wouldn't say he was anti-IB, right? He's definitely pro-Wareham High School,
With no doubt.
right?
Well, that's good.
Absolutely.
No doubt, no doubt.
Yeah, but I didn't want, I know you didn't mean it negatively.
No,
You know,
no,
it's
no.
just, and I appreciate, and I know the whole council appreciated that the teachers who joined the council for those discussions was a mix, right? Different subject areas, and different outlooks, and that was really, really helpful. And after listening to them speak, again, no one is saying that the IB program is bad. No one is saying that. I think what I heard in those meetings was that it just might not be the right program for Wareham right now. That what the students, the majority of the students in the school need now, that might not be. So that's what I heard from there. And certainly Becky is here too, and, you know, Becky is a parent from the school council who was there.
And her daughter's taking IB courses as well.
And there is also the student who's on the school council is a 10th grade student who is currently in an IB class. So I think there was definitely a good mixture of group. And just to be clear, I did not vote in that vote because I didn't feel that it was appropriate that I would be the only school committee member who would have an opinion. You know, that I knew that Scott would be bringing a recommendation to the superintendent. That vote didn't include me. And I think listening to the teachers, it was really powerful. I've said that to Scott now many, many times. It was really, really helpful.
April?
So, as you said, that the dual enrollment program, the cost is going to be potentially very prohibitive to students next year. Was that something that was brought to the attention of the council when the possibility of the dissolution of the IB program was? Because I feel like those students that would want that rigor are now going to be left with only AP, and if that doesn't align with their schedule, then they don't have the option of IB and AP if we get rid of this program for those students that aren't going to be able to afford the dual enrollment program if it goes up to 3 times as much. And I think that's a disservice to the kids as well.
Unfortunately, we just found out about this, the cost increase, so it was not, to answer your question, was not presented to school council because it was not available prior to that meeting. It's hot off the press, unfortunately.
I think that's something that the committee and the superintendent should take into consideration when thinking about dissolving the program, because again, I'm against that.
Jeff?
I am strongly opposed to eliminating a program that has as a fundamental core value critical thinking. What I get told by students, we do more than tennis, and what I get told by students is that AP is all about how good your memory is, and IB is all about how good your brain is to critically think. And when I think of the future, knowledge, you can ask a computer, I got an icon on my desktop at home, you can ask it anything and it pours over, trillions of data and comes up with, I assume, in the vast majority of cases, accurate information. So knowledge, the ability to memorize knowledge to me is almost irrelevant now, but your ability to do something with that knowledge is critical. And so the idea, and by the way, I think April makes a great point. I'm aghast that they may triple the cost of going to Bridgewater State. And to have a plan, now that have a curriculum that's focused on critical thinking, it seems to me is tremendously valuable. Now, having said that, if I was going to argue with myself, I could say, we could easily say, critical thinking should be part of our curriculum, and we don't need IB and the $10,000 dues or whatever in order to have it part of our values for our staff and our curriculum and instruction. But there's something about having it as a structure that others who are serious educators have done a lot of work to build into the curriculum that I think is very appealing, perhaps especially for less experienced educators.
It lends to credibility.
Sure. Now, I admit that I was hoping that we would get more students coming here instead of Sturgis, for example. That doesn't seem to have happened. Nevertheless, as April pointed out, the kids who are going to college love the preparation that they're getting as a result of IB. So I don't, I'll leave it up to the chair whether we have a vote on this, but I strongly believe that we should, oh, and one more thing. I believe that we are experimenting with ELA for all students, not just high-achieving students.
Grade 11.
And I would love to see a little data from that experiment to see how well lower achieving students are doing in an IB class.
Right.
We don't really have that data yet, do we?
It's one class. I'm not sure how valid it would be in one class, but we certainly could dissect that for you. I just question the validity when it's just one class.
Fair enough.
15% of the junior class, so.
Fair enough, and maybe we should do a little bit, have a broader data set.
Well, the plan was to do 3 classes next year. That's what we have on the books right now. For
I guess, and therefore, I'm thinking that maybe it's premature to think that we're only providing this to high-achieving students if it in fact could be very valuable to lower-achieving students. But
Finish, please.
No, I'm good.
I just will add my 2 cents while we're adding 2 cents here. I don't deny that there have been individual students that have benefited from IB. Obviously, it focuses on critical thinking, deeper learning, real-life application. I get all of that. I understand that. And I think it was a worthwhile initiative to start and try and see if it did attract more students to Wareham and see if it benefited the entire school population. But I've had questions for a while. I've made that public in several meetings about staff buy-in, about the implementation, about constraints to the schedule, about forcing students into certain areas that they don't want to be sometimes. And so I have one other question that's been nagging me for many years that was brought up to me by the chairman of the finance committee probably 3 years ago, saying, how do you justify AP and IB in a dwindling student population that Wareham has? And that has resonated with me over the years, and I still have that question. So it's not, again, it sounds maybe like anti-IB, but it's not really anti-IB. It's the schedule, and it's what we are able to offer so few students, honestly. And can we, as a district that has, what's the graduating class right now?
92?
Right, so under 100 students, to have so many options, it seems like we're diluting, and we have class sizes that are small in both areas that would easily be able to come together and help, I think, scheduling. So those were my concerns going into it. So I know as part of the superintendent's goals, he hired an outside consultant. Her recommendation was to eventually dissolve the program. We followed the process of bringing it to your school council, and I appreciate you. You're in a hard place right now, and I appreciate that, and I understand that. But you're giving due diligence to the process, and thank you for that. And so there has been a process. So I'd like to turn it over to the superintendent to hear about that process maybe a little bit, or what he thinks as well.
Thank you. So first, I want to thank Scott for his efforts in the school council. I mean, this was, as you said, this started way back when we hired the consultant to come in and take a look at the program, and she met with students and staff and parents and ran surveys, and then that report went over to the school council, and they used that as a basis of their work and helped make their decision. So I believe strongly it was a comprehensive process that everyone who wanted to have a voice had an opportunity to come and speak and share their feelings about the program. And that was important to me. That's what I wanted to have happen. I didn't want it to be the superintendent coming in and just listening to some people, the loudest voices, and making a decision. I really wanted the school to dive into it and come forward and provide us with a recommendation of how the school wants to go forward. I understand there are lots of different opinions. But I really wanted to hear from the school, and I have, and I appreciate that. I wanted, there's a missing person here who has been a very, very strong advocate for the IB program, our assistant superintendent, Dr. Schwam. And I reached out to her today because I wanted to have her have an opportunity to have a voice. And so she shared with me some of her thoughts that I'd like to share with you. One of her first concerns was the process and making sure that there was a balanced approach, that all voices were heard. IB teachers could come forward, talk about how they felt about the program. Non-IB teachers also were able to do that. And you heard from Scott that he was sure to make that happen and facilitate that. She also expressed concern over the impact on some of the grants that we're receiving. We do receive a significant amount of money from grants. Those grants are written, including the work that we're doing in IB. They will need to be amended as we go forward. If we take this recommendation and go forward, the grants will be amended. Now, we frequently do amend grants, and usually we don't have an issue with that. I want to make that clear, but she is absolutely correct that we would have to amend those grants. I do want to share a passage or a paragraph from what she wrote. It took an immense amount of time, work, and training to be part of this organization, being IB. We have invested so much. Our kids deserve the best, and it is my belief that every student should be provided with the kind of opportunities promoted through IB, regardless of demographics, grades, and teacher recommendations. So I wanted to share that, and she's been a very, very strong advocate of the program, and mostly because of how it benefits our students. So I wanted to share that with you. Now, as I said, there's definitely strong opinions on both sides very valid. We here, me as superintendent, you folks as school committee, we're 30,000 feet above this whole thing. And I feel that by going to the school council, we have heard from those on the ground that are doing the work about looking at the whole school, not just IB, looking at the whole school, and what is the best way for us to go forward as a school, not just with IB, but as a school. I plan, if you leave it to me, to accept this recommendation. At the core of IB is, as you said, April, is a philosophy of education, a student-centered philosophy of education. And when you folks interviewed me way back when, I shared with you that when I became a teacher here in 1996, I learned what good teaching was in Wareham. Why did I learn what good teaching was in Wareham? Because it's student-centered learning. It always has been student-centered learning. It's not unique to IB. And I spend a lot of time in the buildings. I go around with Dr. Chandler, with Tracy Cote, and with Scott, and we see the things that are happening in the classrooms, and they're all student-centered lessons, student-centered work, project-based. The elementary school and middle school are not IB schools, but that's Wareham. That the spirit of IB has been embedded in Wareham for years. It's not going to go away. The fact that we've adopted IB and our teachers have gone through the training and professional development they have will only help that. And it's not going to lose it. It's not IB that's teaching our students that are saying it was great. It's the teachers that are doing that work. And they're still going to do that work. Certainly, there'll be components of IB that will go away, but the spirit of it, the teaching of it, the lessons that the kids have are still going to be there. There's pieces of having AP, IB, and dual enrollment that are hindering our ability to provide opportunities to students. And we have to make a decision. This is something that was presented to me right out of the gate when I took over as superintendent. And I think we've done the important work of determining what direction the school wants to go. My recommendation to you is accept this recommendation. We'll move forward of phasing out the IB. We'll stay AP and dual enrollment. The spirit of IB will still be there. We'll still be teaching kids great lessons, but it's going to also open up opportunities that I think, because we have so much at the top with IB, AP, and dual enrollment, that we're actually hindering the opportunities for our kids, and it'll take that away.
Sheriff, then Brennan?
Oh, go ahead, Ben.
I agree with a lot of what you say, that it's the students that are driving a lot of this. It's the students that drive success. It's got to take something inside the student that makes them want to succeed. And they will succeed whether they take AP, whether they take dual enrollment, whether they take IB. And that is a culture that I think gets fostered starting in kindergarten and all the way up. And as you know, a Wareham alumni who went through all of Wareham schools, the reason I'm sitting here today is because I believe the schools are what made me who I am and what gave me that drive. I came in here tonight ready to agree with that decision that, you know, IB, if we have to cut one, and IB has got to go with financial constraints and everything else that we're going through, I can understand that. What concerns me now is hearing that with the cost of dual enrollment possibly going, you know, doubling or tripling, now it's possible that we're only going to have IP to offer, because dual enrollment is going to be cost prohibitive, and we're getting rid of IB, and now all we'll have is AP. Now, you're right when saying that the programs aren't what makes the student better, but we look at why we have these programs in the first place. It's because colleges look at them when deciding who to accept. Anyone that looks at your school record for whatever reason, any program, any college, any job application that looks back and sees that stuff, they look for those things like AP classes, IB classes. And I feel like we've got to give our kids as many opportunities to shine by taking those programs. Those programs, you know, AP is just it's meaningless really, except for when someone looks at it and says, oh, that must mean they're a better student. It doesn't actually mean they're a better student. It means they followed a certain path procedure, but these initials, beside it mean something. And if we don't have dual enrollment, or if it's cost prohibitive just having AP, I feel we're doing a disservice to our kids if we don't give them at least two choices. So before I recommend that we go through with that, because of this costing, and again, like Scott said, hot off the presses, I had a different opinion than when I walked in, but when we get new information, sometimes that changes things, and it has changed my mind. I don't want to get rid of IB yet until we can. I just think that it's too early, because again, what if we find ourselves in the position of really only having AP to offer? I just don't think that's enough. I think that we need to stick with this a little bit longer. That's my opinion.
Jeff? Did you want to say something?
I didn't, the intent was not to derail this conversation, but I just wanted you to know, we literally just found this out, and I feel like I'm derailing the process, and I apologize for that. But I also just want to say this, like, this scheduling process, it's not, you have 200 kids, and you go, okay, well, we're going to have eight classrooms, of 25 kids, and that's our scheduling. We really need a decision tonight, one way or another, because, like, literally, I'm gonna have to spend over 100 hours making changes, which I'm fine with. But I just need a direction. I don't mean to put more pressure or speak out of turn. Like, we need a direction, and I'm fine with, obviously you know where I stand, but I would like, I would hope we can have a direction coming out of this, because I'm running out of school days before the kids leave, and I still don't have the schedule complete for next year, and if I have to make changes, I mean, I'm talking about having to have meetings with all these kids to find out now, what do you want for requests? And then coordinating that with teacher assignments. It's quite a process, so I don't want to bore you
So
with
with
it.
that new piece of information, what do you think we should do?
Oh, boy. I think that's why you're on school committee. I don't really want to sit up here and debate. I mean, you know where I stand. I am reporting to you from the school council.
I don't know where you stand. I know what the school.
No, he said where he
council
stood.
Maybe I missed
I
it.
heard it earlier.
Are you for it, or do you think we should stick with it?
I love the IB program.
All right, that's what, then,
Jeff and then April.
I'm with you.
So, to me, there's an elephant in the room, and no one's mentioned it. And maybe I'm the only one who thinks it's an elephant in the room. But I've been looking at AP results for 15, 16 years, I don't know how long, okay? And the percentage of kids that get 3 or better on the AP exams is really small. That happens to be a fact. So that means they don't get any credit with the colleges for having taken an AP course. That's a fact. Now, have they learned a lot? I would argue, have they memorized a lot to get a 1 or a 2? Yeah, I guess they did, but it wasn't enough to get credit for actually having taken an AP course. So if you had in fact were sitting up here saying we have to choose between AP and IB, that would be a really interesting question, because it doesn't seem to me that AP is helping a lot of kids, which gets to our chair's point, and I agree it's a very valid point, which is we have to do and our superintendent, we have to do what's best for the school, not necessarily what's best for the high-achieving students who want to take the IB diploma program, which is a handful, right? So to me, I have to vote against the school council with all respect, okay? Because I think it's premature until we know more about what the less high-achieving kids can do with IB curriculum, which we have just started to figure out as a result of one 11th grade ELA course. So if we were having fabulous results from AP, okay, then I'd be saying, you know what? Kids are really benefiting tremendously from AP. They're waiving college credits, saving money, et cetera, et cetera. It happens not to be true. And yet, I'm sure some kids have gotten into fine schools because they had an IB diploma, or maybe even they had IB next to some of their courses. So with after April's comments, I would like to move a decision on this, because I'm hearing that both of you would like a decision.
April and then Joyce?
Oh, sorry.
So first, I have a minor concern. When you mentioned that there are grants tied to IB being included in our curriculum, and I know that you have a history of amending grants, and they're historically not necessarily being an issue. That's a concern for me, that money that we are getting in when we are on, as you put, a shoestring budget, to then modify where we could either get less or get none of that grant money based on the fact that it was written with the fact that we are an IB district is concerning. The other thing is, comparatively, Sturgis, I understand it's a charter school, it's not our school, one of the top-rated schools in the state, and that's an IB for all school. So that's not just for high-achieving students. They mandatory IB for all of their students. So by eliminating that, I feel like we're also eliminating that possibility that we're just sticking our toes in the water for with this small cohort that we've been sampling for, a general, level of students with this IB type curriculum. And I agree with Jeff, it's too soon to know if it is going to be beneficial to those middle of the road or even like lesser achieving students, because maybe they were less achieving because they weren't able to use critical thinking and they didn't have memorization skills that an AP curriculum would be designed for. And maybe by being able to maybe pick their topic under the umbrella of that class to do their project, which I know that all of the schools are project-based and student-centric, and it's one of my favorite things about Wareham, but one of my biggest concerns has always been having the opportunity to offer things for the middle-of-the-road students or the underachieving students so that they can find something that they're passionate about. And there's kids that shut down when it comes to testing or MCAS or things like that. And with IB curriculum, and I'd love to, again, hear from Gisela and even from your other school council member if she's willing to let us know her thoughts. And I know this is probably dragging on longer than anyone anticipated, but I think it's important because this is a huge chunk of time that we've put in and invested in our students. And I agree with Jeff that if AP isn't yielding the benefit that is advertised for a majority of our students, it's not really much of a benefit.
Oh, I'm sorry, Scott, and then Joyce.
Just, I think AP, is so embedded in the Northeast educational culture. It's kind of an institution. I think the AP has its place in education. So I don't want to downplay, and we've also opened up the doors and allowed a lot of kids to have the AP and IB experience because the studies do show when they have those opportunities to take those courses, they perform better in college and they attain a diploma in a quicker period of time and more effective period of time. I just want to highlight, I've got a great assistant principal, two great assistant principals, one that's watching, and she wanted me to make sure that I mentioned, Kim Kavicki, that I mentioned that there would be waivers in regards to dual enrollment. So if there's a financial need, they can apply for waivers. So it's not going to triple for...
Are you suggesting you were texting while we were talking?
No, I was not texting. I got the message. She texted me and wanted to make sure I just, because we want to make sure you have all that information. It is hot off the press, but they would have the opportunity to apply for a fee reduction. It wouldn't be free, but
Is
it
that
would.
unlimited waiver, or, I mean, a majority,
Yeah,
you've got a
again, this
majority
is-
of our population that is, you know,
Hot off the presses.
fiscally in, probably incapable of, you know, coming up with 2 to 3 times the amount for that, so.
I just want to let you know that there is the potential for a fee waiver for students that qualified.
Joyce?
So Jeff, you talk about expanding, you know, the class that's an inclusion class now. Well,
I don't want to call it inclusion.
okay, well, that's what I've heard it called, so that's why
Oh,
I used
really?
that word. Yeah, yeah.
To me, that's more
It's
than,
an IB class, that's,
but that more than implies that there are SPED students. I'm not saying there shouldn't be SPED students.
It's called an IB on this. It shows up as an IB English, but it is an inclusive English class.
Inclusive, not inclusion.
Correct. Well,
sorry, I did, okay.
it's the same.
So I've asked a
Well,
lot of.
I'm sorry, correct me.
I think inclusion's the right word. I think it's an inclusion classroom, yes.
Inclusion meaning specifically including SPED students.
That's correct,
Students and IEPs.
yes.
Even better, okay.
So, no, I forgot what I was going to say. No, so there's one of those classes this year. And so, you know, Scott knows, I ask a lot of questions. I've talked to a lot of students, probably more parents, right? And ask them about their students, you know, enrolling in IB classes. And there are a lot of kids, and this is no fault of the high school. It's, you know, there are only so many classes they can run. But there are a lot of students who are in IB classes because that's all that was offered. So I don't know if it's specific to that class, but the students who are in the IB classes, some of them are there because they want to be, like your son, but some of them are there because that was the only class that they could fit in their schedule. So to say that we're, you know, to fill up 2 more classes, well, maybe you could, but would it be with kids who wanted IB classes, or would it be with kids who were taking that IB class because that was the choice they had? And that really, I don't mean it as negatively as it sounds, but,
Yeah, that's,
you know, but it's a fact, right? You know,
Any of those students, do you know if they've like, that were, you know, hypothetically, like say, not forced into that for scheduling reasons, were they negatively impacted by it, or did they end up finding value and benefiting from that, even though it wasn't necessarily their first choice? Is there any info on
I'm sure
that?
there's value to be found in a class like that, right? But I'm just saying, it's not necessarily something that students are seeking out. That's all I'm saying.
Understood.
And also, back to the school council, I mean, there were, like Scott said, there were extra meetings, there were IB teachers brought in, there was a lot of discussion. Scott was there, you know, with his input. And so those were very good discussions, and the teachers brought a lot of good input to those. So, you know, the decisions, that vote was not taken lightly. It wasn't, you know, made by people who weren't informed. And on that note, Scott, I hope you wouldn't mind if we asked Becky to come up and
Please,
speak. And
I'm glad she's here.
there for all of the meetings. She's a
And then
parent.
we'll let Gisella speak after Becky
Oh,
speaks.
yes.
If she wants to go first, I'm fine with
No,
it.
it's fine. That's fine.
So
Yeah.
thank you. Go ahead.
A specific thing you wanted me to talk about?
No,
or
no,
in
no,
general,
just
what?
in general.
Yeah, so we heard from everybody in every corner of the IB world and what they thought of it, and read the report thoroughly and looked through that. And my concerns with the IB program lie more with the amount of resources that are spent in a program for a small portion of our student population, where we have an increasing number of students in our population that require special needs and IEP programs. Are we spreading our resources too thin, focusing on this IB program for such a small portion of students? Again, some of those students, as Joy said, not even wanting to be part of that program, just being kind of forced into it from a scheduling issue. That was kind of my thing. I love the IB program. I think it's a fantastic program for probably a lot of schools. I don't know that it's necessarily the fit for our school and our students. To your point on critical thinking, like, that should be part of all of our curriculum in all of our classes, you know? Like, I feel like that's a bigger issue with education in general right now, to be incorporating that into our class structures everywhere. We shouldn't need an IB program to make that part of the curriculum. And my daughter was one of the students forced into an IB class that did not want to take an IB class, did not love it. 10 out of 10 would not recommend from her. She did not enjoy it. She wished the whole time that she had been in the AP class that she wanted to get for that one.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your work on school council and volunteering your time. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Giselle, I did promise you the chance to speak, so the floor is yours.
Speaking from the point of view of someone who was put into an IB class who did not want to be, I might be an outlier, but in my sophomore year, I was put into an IB class when I wanted an AP class, and I was so frustrated, but then it became one of my favorite classes. It's IB Global Politics with Colonel Stanton, and now I'm taking an independent study with him, and that class made me want to take IB classes, and from then on, for the rest of high school, I've taken IB classes because of a scheduling issue. I've taken AP, IB, and dual enrollment, and I feel as though IB has supported me the most, and also has made me think in ways I've never really thought in a classroom. I think it supported me when I took dual enrollment classes. It felt the closest to that compared to AP, but even so, I feel like IB was the better fit for me personally. And I know people who have done IB diploma program and who are currently doing it now, who, even though it does cause scheduling constraints, love the program itself. I think the critical thinking is incredibly important. I also think the structure of IB classes is incredibly different than AP. Just from the IAs that we have in IB, where you have a project that you have to do for a good portion of the school year, where it's something that you are passionate about. You get to pick the topic in the realm of that class, and then you're working on that throughout the portion of the school year, which I feel no other class has allowed me to do. And it's more than just learning, it's also implementing what we're learning, which I think is incredibly important. And I think, yeah, I'm in a huge favor of IB, like I've said many times. And I do feel like it'd be a disservice for future students if this program did not exist. I think of my little sister who's in elementary school right now, and I think of all the classes that I already know now that she would have liked if the IB program is still there for her. So I really hope the IB program does stay.
Thank you, Gisela. I just want to make one final comment, and then we'll have to see where we're going to go with this. because you can hear that there's some division within the teaching community, within the school, within the board. I think it's fairly obvious that there's some differences of opinions, all coming from good places. As a longtime AP English and composition teacher and a consultant for the College Board who did pre-AP work, which focused 100% on critical thinking, AP promotes critical thinking if it's taught correctly. I would also add that in the report that we got from the consultant, I'm pretty sure I remember her saying that the IB exam scores were actually pretty underwhelming also. So it's not just AP over the years that have had some probably underwhelming scores overall. I think it was indicated in that report that IB exams weren't always the strongest either. So we have that. I do think, I worry about kicking the can down the road again another year. So that's my worry. I made my points, I think, as clearly as I can tonight going forward. We've heard from everybody on the committee. I don't think there's too much more to add at this point. So, Dr. DeAndrea, I don't know what you'd like.
Can I make a motion for us to vote?
I haven't decided yet if I'm inclined not to have a vote. We did not vote for it, so I don't see why we should vote to pull it out either.
Except I thought, but don't let me put words in your mouth, is that you would like the school committee, you said it was gray, as I recall, but you would actually like to get at least the sense of the school committee on this issue.
I have that sense. I have that sense.
I think the diplomatic thing to do is to vote,
What are we voting on, though?
whether or not we go with the recommendation of the school council.
It's not up to us, it's up to the superintendent.
I think, then a motion to defer the superintendent, I don't know. I just feel like we should vote. We vote when curriculum changes are brought to us in general. That's something that's brought to the school committee when the high school presents us their curriculum for the following year. I think that should make this warrant a vote.
So I did check with Mask prior to this evening to find out what is the proper procedure on this, because I didn't want to do something improper. Mask did indicate it was a gray area. My go-to person, Dorothy Presser, has retired, so she was unavailable, but the other representative said, well, it's a gray area, basically implying you don't have to vote, you could vote, you don't have to vote.
But to April's point, we vote on the syllabus every year. And if Scott presented a syllabus for this year, well, he did present a syllabus for this year, we voted, and we approved it.
Right, and as he said many times, we often have courses in the program of studies that we don't run.
Yes, but the reason for that is not because, it's not because he's decided he didn't like the program. It's, you have insufficient enrollment, or you don't have a teacher who can do it, or something like that. It's not because he's made some executive decision to eliminate something that we have decided as a school committee we want in the syllabus. I know, it's gray, fine, okay.
I think with gray, it's better to make things black and white.
Well, okay, but my thought on this is that if we do a vote, basically, we're just telling you our opinion. It's still up to you to decide whether or not to go through it, unless this vote would basically demand that you follow our opinion on it. And even listening to everyone's opinion, it's divided. So by a 3-2 vote or a 2-3 vote either way, you're gonna find out that we're kind of in a gray area about what we think you should do about it. So what's the point of a vote? I mean, we can let our opinion known, but it's gonna be, just kind of hearing from everybody tonight, it's gonna be a 3-2, 2-3 kind of either way is what I feel like it's gonna be. I'm, not sure yet, but.
I just feel it's a decision that's up to the superintendent.
Yeah.
Sorry, Matt.
Well, as the governing body of the superintendent, I feel like it should be up to us, since the curriculum is usually presented to us to vote in the first place. And whether it's divided, whether it passes or fails, I think gray is a sketchy place to be, and I would rather have a formal vote of the recommendation, just like when we go to town meeting and you have the vote of the finance committee and you have the vote of the select board. It's then ultimately up to town meeting to decide, but they have given their recommendation in the form of a formal vote.
Okay.
Everyone hates me right now, and I'm so sorry for that,
So
but I
if
think
we,
it's
so if we
important.
vote, then it's a recommendation to the superintendent. Just like the vote of the school council, who did a lot of work, is a recommendation to the superintendent.
Not a man.
I would disagree with that. Meaning that when we approve the syllabus, it's not a recommendation.
But so we had this conversation, right? Scott couldn't wait for the for the syllabus, the course of studies, thank you, to be approved. He couldn't wait for the end of this IB process, this committee process. He couldn't wait, because he needed to start the registration process. So that's why, because otherwise, we would have postponed the course of studies for that reason.
I understand he may have done a lot of preliminary work, okay, associated with that. But that doesn't mean that the vote of this committee was irrelevant. It just means that he would have had to have altered what he did, perhaps some of the work, although we have a history of approving the course of studies, so it's reasonable for him to have done a lot of work ahead of time. But that doesn't mean that our vote is irrelevant.
I'm not saying it's irrelevant.
Well, if it's, look, the school council in good faith met, had great discussions, and made a recommendation with regard to IB. If you're saying that the vote of the school committee, which is the governing body of the school district, is just a recommendation, then the information we have is, that's not clear, that it's a gray area on this particular subject. So I don't think we can simply say a vote is an advisory vote or a recommendation, because it's not clear that it is. If your research, and I applaud you for doing it, if your research had said, sorry, school committee, you can advise all you like, but ultimately it's the responsibility of the superintendent, then I would have accepted that and said, okay, we can have a vote, it's just a recommendation, it is what it is. But if it's gray, it's gray. And I think it's a really important subject.
So why didn't the school committee vote to adopt the IB program
Well, we did,
when we adopted the course of studies?
exactly.
We're talking in circles. We're talking in circles.
We're not-
We just said we had to adopt the course of studies in January or whenever, while this IB process that we asked Matt to do, while this process was going on, because it had to be done. But now you're saying, well, we have no choice because we already adopted it when we adopted the course of
What do
studies.
you mean we have no choice? I'm not saying we have no choice.
We can vote to change our mind.
Yes, we can vote to either continue or not
Next
continue
year.
because it has been voted previously into effect during that initial vote. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Because you were
Well, I
on the
think
committee
we-
at that time,
If we're gonna
correct?
if we're gonna vote, well, it does, I'm saying that, like, if you go, no matter which way the vote goes, it just, the school council, you're saying to the school council what they did isn't meaningful.
I would never say that about a school committee, a school council
I know
recommendation.
you're not saying that, it's just how I'm interpreting it.
Well, I don't want you to interpret it that way either.
All right, well, I'm gonna stop talking.
May I
Please.
Yes.
try to, my interpretation?
stay out of it.
So this is my interpretation. The boots on the ground have said to the generals, we want to go in this direction. Based on what we're seeing in the field, we need to do this. And I recommend you listen to them.
We got that from your earlier comments.
Okay, well, I just wanted to emphasize it.
Oh, Gisella has her hand up.
Could I just make one small comment? Sure. When the IB evaluator was here a couple months ago, there were also students who had their opinion on the IB program, and overwhelmingly, students were in favor of it. So I think it's important to take into account both teachers' opinions and staff's opinions, but also the students. So.
Thank you.
I think the real issue is, with IB is, like, we're required to offer so many courses, and that's what kind of binds things up. I really wish we didn't have to, I wish we weren't required to do the diploma. So with the AP, we run the courses based on if we get, 12 or more kids, we try and run them. The part that's so restrictive with the IB is the diploma track. That's really what hurts us. That's when we're running classes with, less than 10 kids. That's when you hear about, like, someone wants to take a class and we have to run this, so the kids get pushed into that. I think that's the toughest part, is that it's very restrictive and it's very prescribed as far as what we have to offer, what kids, have for available courses. That's the frustrating part to me as the person that completes the master schedule for the high school, is it requires us to run these courses. I just wish it was just like the AP, because I don't think we'd be having this debate, and I think we'd be able to do both of them very easily.
Jeff?
So Becky made a comment earlier, and I think she was agreeing with me, that you can have the philosophy without the letters attached to the course. If you were sitting in front of us saying, I could save, pick a number, $300,000 a year, even after the grant issue, et cetera, okay? And that's X number of teachers that we could save because we're in the middle of layoffs and all the rest of that stuff, then I'd be sitting here thinking, wow,
Right.
Is it really worth $300,000 a year to keep...
We'd be home by now.
Exactly. We'd be home by now, okay? So, but I haven't heard that. What I've heard is, yeah, there's a half a position here and a $10,000 dues, and then the whole BSU thing, complicates this, and I think it's an unknown because it's hot off the presses. And our ability to have this be a successful program for a lot of students, not a relatively small number of students, is an unknown. So if, for example, I know we don't want to, quote, kick the can down the road, but if a couple of years from now you sat in front of us and said, we tried this on a lot of students to see if historically underachieving students actually flourished taking IB, or the reverse, which is it didn't work, okay? It just didn't work. Then I'd be sitting here with more information, and I'd be much more comfortable making a decision that eliminated an outstanding program because, as Becky said, it just wasn't working for Wareham. I just don't feel like we have enough information, or the savings associated with eliminating it is sufficient to, as Andrea said, to void all the tremendous amount of effort that we have put into getting us to this point in time. And that's my discomfort in supporting the superintendent, the rank and file, whatever, the people on the ground. I do think at a certain point, people who are at 100,000 feet or 30,000 feet have a responsibility to make a decision that they think is in the best interest of the long-term value that we present to the citizens of Wareham. That does not mean that I discount in any way the work that was done by the school council. And I suspect if I had been in that meeting, there would have been, and I know, there were a variety of opinions, okay? Just as there are a variety of opinions here. I just want more information before I get rid of something that involved a tremendous amount of hard work and training of staff.
April?
Would we potentially be able to extend the dates? So instead of dissolving by the end of, it's a 2-year diploma program, give it an additional 2 and see about the evolution of adding the, middle echelon into that data collection to see the long-term benefit for other average students benefiting from the program, as opposed to just cutting it out, still taking all of the work and the information that the school council has put into this, because I know it was a lot of time, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and I can absolutely appreciate that. But to sort of give us more time to follow the data from that cohort that we just started this year to see the effectiveness before we decide 100% and revisit it, but just extend the dissolution contingent on the data from that other cohort. Would that be a possibility that you're willing to entertain.
Anything's a possibility, sure.
Does anyone think that that is like a meet in the middle, like a let's just add 2 years to the dates that are here as the final whatever, contingent on the data to see if it's beneficial for not just those higher kids, with the new information that we just got about BSU, and then come back to this with the recommendation and the work that the school council and the independent person put into this, and see if it really is going to be beneficial to 86 it.
With the chair's permission, I'll take that as a motion.
Not yet, please. Just a moment. I want to ask, how many students are in the BSU program? How many seniors?
How many students?
Yes.
20, I want to say like 24. I'm sure I'll get a text in a
That's
minute
okay.
with the exact amount, but I think it's like 24.
Because I just think the whole
Take away his phone.
BSU
I'm not
argument...
texting, I said I'm getting text.
I think the BSU argument is a red herring. I don't think it really changes anything. If they're not in that program, they're either going to take whatever courses are offered at Wareham High School at that point.
Well, they don't have a choice, right?
Yeah, they'd either take AP, or they'd take honors, or they'd take college prep courses, which is what every other high school in Eastern Mass does right now.
Try not to be every other high school.
What is the cost of BSU?
So right now, it's $200 per
$200.
course, and they take 2 courses a semester, and that's all they have. And then obviously books. Some classes, books might be $20, some might be $100. It just depends on the class.
So going from 400 to 1,200 for one semester is a big jump if they're right, no, not,
It'll be just over 1,000 with the new price.
well, with the books and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So you're
yeah.
looking at going from about roughly 400.
Still a great deal,
to
though.
1,200. I mean, it is, absolutely.
Comparatively to what a course costs a
Especially
freshman
since we
year.
transport them.
Yes.
Curiosity, can you apply for financial aid for, like?
No.
You can't?
No, there's no financial aid. But at $200 a course, it doesn't get much cheaper
It's still
than
a lot
that.
cheaper, yeah.
I mean, the undergrad is over 1,000 for that same course.
You sure you want to be chair?
Second guessing his nomination from the beginning of the meeting. Want to go back to the beginning of the meeting? Want to redo?
So we have the recommendation from the school council. That's what was supposed to be presented to us tonight. It was presented to us tonight. Is that, I guess my question that I'll ask rhetorically, is that it?
Can I
It's a
make a
possible
motion?
vote,
Can
Mary
I
Jo.
make a motion to table this discussion for another week and give us all time to think about it, come up with arguments, and maybe have a vote next meeting?
I don't think the
Scott
principal has
needs
the
the
time
No.
to do that.
I'm
Well,
sorry, that's right.
I apologize.
I thought about
go
that,
away
but-
once a year, and I will be out of the country for the next meeting,
We only have
so,
one more meeting left, right?
That's right, June 20th.
I mean, I just won't be able to be there. I just want to be up front.
Right, but you also would need to get moving one way or another.
I really need a decision, I'm sorry to put pressure on you, but I really need a decision, like, soon, because, again, I only have so much time left with the students, and we've got MCAS times 6 days, senior exit interviews, everything that goes on at the end of the year. So my actual days to have, you're talking about, there has to be at least 50 meetings with students at this point, and several meetings with department heads to adjust schedules. So again, not impossible. I don't want to be a salesperson here. I'll do whatever Dr. DeAndrea wants me to do. He and I know, we've had conversations about this, and whatever the direction is, we'll be ready on the 28th of August. So I just need, a direction.
So I'll ask Dr. DeAndre, do you have a recommendation to the school committee regarding this?
My
think we heard
recommendation is to accept the recommendation of the school council. I think there's been a lot of work. We've done a lot of work on this all year long, and it was not something that was taken lightly by school council. They really dove into it. They listened to the teachers, and I think they acted in what they believe is the best direction for the school.
I can print the headline. School votes, or school will be abandoning the IB program as of, whatever the date is. It's a great headline. Not in my world. That's not a great headline.
Phasing it out, yes, that's correct, I would say that.
I'd come up with a different headline.
Abandoning, I think, is a, phasing out is
We
a,
don't control the headline.
well,
When we
Liam
give it to them,
does. No pressure, Liam.
Don't make decisions based on headlines.
I know we don't make decisions based on headlines, but we care, and you care, I know, about perception of Wareham Public Schools on the part of the community, not just Wareham, but outside the community, for a variety of reasons. And I think we should care.
Well, I guess the other headline could be, school committee rejects outside consultant objective recommendation and recommendation of the school council. It depends how you spin it. It can be spun both ways.
Yep, it can be.
So,
Honestly, I think that the reason why we hired Dr. DeAndrea is to make these kind of decisions. And he's gotten the information, he knows our feelings, he knows their feelings. I think we've given him all the data possible, and we support you. If this is the decision you want to make, this is why we hired you to make this decision. I don't want necessarily to get rid of the program, but I'm not superintendent, I'm not in the schools every day, you are, and you say you accept the recommendation, then I do too. I support you,
Thank you. Thank you.
even if I don't like it.
I just think it's
Support
too soon by just now extending the offering to other students. I think it's too soon to completely
Let's
dissolve.
Move on.
And I also still think we need to vote to make it official, because I don't like gray area.
well, at this time, I'm going to make my first decision as a chair to say that there will not be a vote on it this evening. We have the recommendation, and we'll have to decide going forward. The superintendent's going to have to make a decision going forward. I will do a little more research as well at this time, but, so I'm going to move on to the next agenda item.
Thank you.
Superintendent report.
That's you.
Okay. Well, thank you. So I have bill and payroll warrants that I ask you approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 500.
Okay. And I believe we're tabling, if Mr. Chairman, may we table that? Because,
Till Kristen Flynn's back, yes.
yeah, Director of Finance, I really need her here for that conversation. So if we could do that on the 20th, I'd appreciate
What,
that.
hourly rates?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of school committee reports, any subcommittee need to report out?
No, the policy review had the last one, and all the policies were now just implemented and voted into all of the handbooks that we updated this year.
Thank you.
But I think this is for the upcoming, that we get to, the chair, you will be assigning at our next meeting the,
Correct. Yes, so there'll be the reorganization of the committee and what subcommittees we want to be on. I'll be reaching out to people individually, and then we'll have a meeting where we discuss it on June 20th and make those assignments. So, go ahead.
The only thing I would say about that is that there's ongoing negotiations going on, right? So I don't know if we want to continue.
Yeah, I think it would make
That's up
sense
to
to, if you're on the current subcommittee where there's an organization going on, that person
current
should
negotiation makes sense
should
to
stay
stay
in
with the
the-
continuity.
to stay with that.
That's too bad.
But the other ones can rotate or shift if we need to. Okay. I just want to remind people that the Wareham High School graduation is June 7th, and the past graduation is on June 13th. We will be having an executive session before our next meeting on the 20th to discuss superintendent contract. So I will be in touch with people. I'll give you the list of current subcommittees and what negotiation groups we're associated with as well, and then we'll go forward from there. I do want to thank Gisela again. Thank you very much for your voice, Gisela. It was appreciated and listened to, so thank you.
Gisela.
Thank you.
Yes, Giselle, thank you very much. Where are you going to be next year?
UMass Amherst, I think.
Oh,
Congratulations.
very nice.
Good luck.
Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, 500. Thank you, everybody. Meeting is adjourned.